Caitlin Clark, a name that's become synonymous with the future of women's basketball. But is she really all she's cracked up to be? Today, we're digging deep into the hype surrounding Clark, exposing the cracks in her game that the media conveniently ignores. If you think Caitlin Clark is the next big thing, you might want to think again. Stick around because what you're about to hear might just change your perspective on one of the WNBA's most hyped players. Let's start by addressing the elephant in the room, Caitlin Clark's shooting. There's no denying that she has the range and confidence to pull up from anywhere on the court. But is that really enough? The numbers suggest otherwise. While Clark might have the occasional game where she seems unstoppable, her overall shooting percentage, particularly from three-point range, tells a different story. Take a closer look at her stats, and you'll see that her shooting is anything but consistent. In fact, Clark's three-point shooting percentage often hovers around the low 30s, far from elite. In big games, when the pressure is on and defenses tighten up, she tends to struggle, forcing up shots that have little chance of going in. These aren't just isolated incidents, they're a pattern. It's easy to get caught up in the highlights, but when you break down her performances, you start to see that her shooting isn't as reliable as many would like to believe. Now let's consider the type of shots she takes. Caitlin Clark is known for her deep-range attempts, often pulling up from well beyond the arc. While these shots make for great highlight material when they go in, they're also incredibly risky. More often than not, these long-range bombs come off as desperate rather than as strategic, especially when they're taken early in the shot clock or when there are better options available. The media loves to showcase these shots when they go in, but what they don't show you are the countless misses, the forced attempts that end up hurting her team more than helping it. Critics argue that this type of play style, while exciting, isn't sustainable. Sure, it works against weaker defenses or in lower stakes games, but what happens when Clark is up against elite competition? The answer is clear: her shooting falls apart. The truth is, relying on inconsistent deep shots isn't a recipe for success, and it certainly doesn't make you the best player on the court. Moving on, let's talk about team dynamics. Basketball is a team sport, but sometimes it seems like Caitlin Clark's game is more about individual accolades than team success. Clark often carries a heavy scoring load for her team, and while that might seem impressive at first glance, it raises an important question. Is she truly lifting her team, or is she simply taking up all the offensive oxygen? There are arguments to be made that Clark's heavy scoring load is a result of limited offensive support from her teammates. But let's flip that narrative for a moment. Could it be that her style of play, dominating the ball, taking a high volume of shots, is actually stifling her team's offensive potential? Basketball isn't just about putting up points, it's about creating opportunities for your teammates, making them better, and playing within a system that maximizes everyone's strengths. When you compare Clark to other elite players, like Sabrina Ionescu, the difference becomes clear. Ionescu, for instance, is known not just for her scoring, but for her ability to involve her teammates, to control the pace of the game, and to make everyone around her better. She's a playmaker, someone who can impact the game in multiple ways, not just by scoring. In contrast, Clark's game often seems one-dimensional. If she's not scoring, what else is she doing to help her team win? And this brings us to the heart of the issue, the difference between being a high-volume scorer and being a true leader. Clark might put up big numbers, but at what cost? Are those points translating into wins, or are they just empty stats? The media loves to focus on her scoring, but they rarely discuss the fact that her teams often struggle in big games. Could it be that Clark's style of play isn't as conducive to winning as the hype suggests? Caitlin Clark's rise to fame hasn't been just about her on-court performances. It's also been fueled by her rivalries, particularly with Angel Reese. These matchups have drawn significant media attention, turning their games into must-watch events. But how much of Clark's fame is based on these rivalries rather than her actual abilities? Clark and Reese have a history that goes back to their AIU days, with Reese's team defeating Clark's in the 2019 finals. This rivalry has only grown more intense as they've faced off in college, where their games have garnered massive attention, even when the matchups haven't been close. The media loves to play up the narrative of Clark versus Reese, drawing comparisons to legendary NBA rivalries like Magic Johnson versus Larry Bird. But here's the thing. Despite all the hype, both Clark and Reese have downplayed the rivalry, insisting that they're friends off the court and that the competitiveness is just part of the game. Yet it's undeniable that this rivalry has played a huge role in elevating Clark's profile. The constant comparisons, the heated debates, and the narrative of two young stars battling it out have all contributed to making Clark a household name. But ask yourself, how much of this is about her actual skills on the court, and how much is just media-driven hype? Adding to this narrative is the fact that Clark was snubbed from the initial 2004 U.S. Olympic team roster, despite her strong performances in WNBA games. This exclusion sparked outrage among her fans and further fueled the rivalry with Reese, who is a leading candidate for Rookie of the Year. Some argue that this snub has only empowered Clark's fan base, creating an even more compelling story around her and further entrenching the rivalry with Reese. And speaking of the Rookie of the Year race, this debate over whether Clark or Reese should win the award has added even more fuel to their rivalry. The media coverage surrounding this has been intense, with analysts and fans alike weighing in on who deserves the title. Some believe that if Reese wins, it could actually be the best thing for Clark's career and the WNBA, creating a lasting rivalry that could elevate both players, much like Johnson and Bird did for the NBA. But again, we have to ask, how much of Clark's fame is built on her actual abilities, and how much is the result of a well-crafted narrative? Rivalries are great for the sport, but they can also overshadow the truth. Is Caitlin Clark truly as good as the media makes her out to be? Or is she just another player benefiting from a hype machine that loves a good story? Now let's address the role of the media in all this. There's no doubt that Caitlin Clark is a media darling. Every time she hits a deep three or puts up a high-scoring game, the headlines write themselves. But is all this attention truly warranted? Or is it just another example of the media latching onto a marketable star and building them up beyond their actual abilities? The media's obsession with Clark isn't surprising. She's young, she's talented, and she plays an exciting brand of basketball. But that doesn't necessarily mean she's the best player in the league, or even the best at her position. There are plenty of other players in the WNBA who don't get the same level of attention, but are arguably more complete and effective on the court. Players who play both ends of the floor, who can score, facilitate, and defend at a high level. Yet because they don't have the same flashy style or marketable persona, they're often overlooked. Take Sabrina Ionescu again as an example. While Clark might get more headlines, Ionescu's all-around game is arguably more valuable to a team. She can score when needed, but she's also a top-tier facilitator, and her defensive abilities are nothing to sneeze at. The media might not hype her up as much, but when you look at the impact she has on the game, it's clear who the more complete player is. This isn't to say that Caitlin Clark isn't a good player. She clearly is. But the question is whether she's as good as the media would have you believe. The constant hype can make it difficult to see the flaws in her game, but they're there if you're willing to look past the highlight reels and dig into the actual performances. Finally, let's talk about the expectations that have been placed on Caitlin Clark. From the moment she burst onto the scene, there's been a narrative that she's the next big thing in women's basketball, the player who will take the league to new heights. But has she lived up to those expectations? The answer isn't as clear-cut as her supporters would like to believe. Yes, Clark can score in bunches, and yes, she's had some incredible games. But when you look at her career as a whole, has she truly delivered in the biggest moments? Has she led her teams to championships? Has she consistently performed at a high level against elite competition? These are the questions that need to be asked, and the answers aren't always favorable. The truth is, Clark has yet to prove she can be the kind of player who leads a team to the promised land. She's put up big numbers, sure, but numbers alone don't win games, especially not in the WNBA, where the competition is fierce and every game matters. Until she can show that she can consistently lead her team to success, the question of whether she's overrated will continue to loom large. So, is Caitlin Clark truly the superstar the media makes her out to be? Or is she just another player caught up in the hype? The inconsistencies, the team dynamics, and the comparisons to players like Sabrina Ionescu suggest there's more to the story. The hype machine may be in full swing, but only time will tell if Clark can truly rise above it. Don't miss our next video, where we explore the players who are quietly making a bigger impact than anyone realizes. Could one of them be the true future of the WNBA? You'll have to stick around to find out. As the 25 WNBA draft approaches, the basketball world is buzzing with anticipation for UConn's sensational guard, Paige Beckers. But before she even steps onto a WNBA court, Beckers is already making waves with a groundbreaking move that has fans and analysts talking. Imagine the shock when, on a regular Friday, it was announced that Beckers would be joining the newly formed Unrivaled basketball league. This isn't just another league. This is a revolutionary shift in women's sports. And Beckers is right at the heart of it. Paige Beckers took to social media to express her excitement about joining the Unrivaled league. "Blessed and grateful to be a part of this amazing league," Beckers posted. "To take an active role in the growth of women's sports is a dream come true. Excited for the future, it's just the beginning." This move is not just a career choice for Beckers, but a statement about her commitment to advancing women's sports. The Unrivaled League, a 3x3 basketball league, offers an alternative to WNBA players who typically go overseas to play during the WNBA offseason. Founded by New York Liberty star Breanna Stewart and Minnesota Lynx star Nafisa Collier, Unrivaled is set to revolutionize women's basketball. The league will launch in Miami, Florida in January 2025, perfectly timed during the WNBA offseason. Unrivaled boasts an impressive roster of players, including Kahlia Copper, Angel Reese, Kelsey Plum, Arike Ogunbowale, Jackie Young, Ryan Howard, Jewel Lloyd, and Chelsea Gray. Paige Beckers' commitment to Unrivaled is particularly noteworthy, as she is the first current non-WNBA player to join the league. This highlights her forward-thinking approach and dedication to the sport. Before joining Unrivaled, Paige Beckers has some unfinished business at UConn. She opted to return for her extra year of eligibility instead of entering the 2024 WNBA draft, making her a favorite for the #1 overall pick in 2025. Last season, Beckers demonstrated her prowess by averaging a career-best 21.9 points, 5.2 rebounds, 3.8 assists, 2.2 steals, and 1.4 blocks per game. Her performance solidified her status as one of the top players in college basketball. In a groundbreaking move, Paige Beckers signed an unprecedented NIL deal with Unrivaled, making her the first NCAA athlete to gain ownership equity in a league. According to The Athletic's NBA insider, Shams Charania, Unrivaled promises the highest average pay in professional women's basketball, surpassing even the WNBA. This deal positions Beckers at the forefront of a new era in women's sports, emphasizing player compensation and ownership. Unrivaled was announced by WNBA stars Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier in July 2023. The league features a 10 to 15% ownership pool for players and has been aggressively recruiting top-tier talent. With 6 franchises and a total of 30 players, the league aims to offer an average salary of $250,000, slightly above the WNBA Supermax of $241,000. Women's sports is on such a rise, and it feels like everyone is benefiting from that except the women in the sport, Collier said via The Athletic. "We're trying to change that and also create generational wealth for these women." Unrivaled is founded on the principle that players deserve compensation and ownership reflecting their value. Paige Beckers' involvement in Unrivaled is set to have a profound impact on women's basketball. Her decision to join a new league before even entering the WNBA speaks volumes about her vision for the future of the sport. Beckers is not just a phenomenal player, but a trailblazer advocating for greater recognition and compensation for female athletes. As Paige Beckers prepares for her final collegiate season at UConn and gears up for the 2025 WNBA draft, her journey with Unrivaled will be closely watched by fans and aspiring athletes alike. Her commitment to advancing women's basketball and her historic NIL deal with Unrivaled positions her as a key figure in the evolving landscape of women's sports. When the 24 WNBA season resumes on August 15th, a few teams are poised for major draft implications, including the Los Angeles Sparks. The concept of tanking has become a strategic move for teams looking to acquire top talent to expedite a rebuild. For the Sparks, the gem of the 2025 WNBA draft is undoubtedly UConn guard Paige Beckers. As it stands, the teams with the best lottery odds include the Sparks, Washington Mystics, Dallas Wings, and Atlanta Dream. However, the post-Olympic break could shift these odds. The Dream and Wings are both capable of making a run for the playoffs, while the Sparks may focus on setting their sights on the draft. The Sparks' dream scenario involves securing the best odds for the #1 pick to select Paige Beckers. The Sparks have had a challenging season, with point guard being a crucial position of need. While players like Ari McDonald have shown promise, the addition of a true starting point guard like Beckers could transform the team. Beckers is widely regarded as the top point guard in the nation and has made a remarkable recovery from previous injuries. Her ability to handle the ball and playmake would be invaluable for the Sparks, who already have future stars in Cameron Brink and Rickea Jackson. The trio of Beckers, Brink, and Jackson could be one of the best young cores in the league. While securing a top draft pick is crucial, internal development is equally important for the Sparks. Rickea Jackson has emerged as a dark horse Rookie of the Year candidate, averaging 11.4 points, 3.9 rebounds, and 1.3 assists in the first half of the season. Her continued development is vital for the team's future success. The Sparks have been involved in several close games this season, but have struggled to close them out. Gaining valuable experience and building a winning culture will attract free agents and contribute to the team's long-term success. Now let's talk about Caitlin Clark and how she compares to Paige Beckers. Caitlin Clark has taken the 2024 season by storm, establishing herself as one of the premier players in women's basketball. She's averaging an astonishing 31.7 points, 8.9 assists, and 7.3 rebounds per game. Known for her scoring ability, especially from long range, she's a powerhouse, no doubt about it. On the other hand, Paige Beckers is also a formidable talent, averaging 21.9 points, 3.8 assists, and 5.1 rebounds per game. She has chosen to remain in college for another year, which gives her additional time to develop her game and possibly step into a more prominent role in women's basketball after Clark's departure. While Clark's stats might be flashier, Beckers is playing the long game, focusing on honing her skills and preparing for a bigger impact in the future. Their playing styles differ significantly. Clark is a sharpshooter, lighting up the scoreboard with her three-pointers. Beckers, however, has a more versatile offensive game. She can score, but she's also a facilitator, making plays for her teammates and enhancing the overall team dynamic. This versatility might give Beckers an edge in the professional realm, where adaptability can be crucial. Media attention has been heavily skewed towards Clark, but Beckers has expressed a desire to share the spotlight with other players. She emphasizes the importance of promoting a broader range of talent in women's basketball, which suggests that her focus may not solely be on filling Clark's shoes, but rather on contributing to the sport's growth as a whole. This mindset is commendable and could endear her to fans and players alike. Both players have already made significant impacts on their teams in the sport, with Beckers aiming to continue this trend in the upcoming season. Their mutual respect and friendship, having played together on the USA U19 team, further highlight that the narrative is not just about rivalry, but also about collaboration and shared success in women's sports. While Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark are both elite players, their distinct playing styles set them apart. Clark is known for her aggressive, high-volume scoring approach, averaging 31.7 points per game and never hesitating to take shots, even from long range. Beckers, while capable of scoring, is more of a team player who excels in playmaking and setting up her teammates. She prefers to have everyone appear on the scoreboard rather than dominating it herself. Clark's style is more individualistic, often requiring her to have the ball in her hands to create opportunities for herself and others. This is partly due to Iowa's offensive strategy that relies heavily on her abilities. Beckers tends to play within a more team-oriented system at UConn, distributing the ball and creating opportunities for her teammates. Clark is particularly adept at creating her own shots, even when facing tight defense. She's known for taking and making tough shots. Beckers, while skilled, has sometimes struggled to create space when tightly defended in big games. Clark often faces tougher defensive pressure, with teams game planning specifically to stop her. Despite this, she still manages to put up impressive numbers. Beckers, while also a focus of defensive attention, may not face the same level of constant pressure as Clark due to UConn's more balanced offensive approach. Clark's game is more centered around her ability to score in high volumes while still maintaining a high assist rate. Beckers adapts her game based on her teammates' performance and the overall team needs, sometimes taking a back seat in scoring to facilitate for others. Clark is known for taking more risks with her shots, attempting difficult plays that can lead to spectacular outcomes. Beckers tends to play a more controlled game, focusing on efficiency and team play rather than individual heroics. It's important to note that these differences in playing style are not just personal choices, but also reflect the offensive systems of their respective teams. Clark's high-scoring approach is crucial for Iowa's success, while Beckers' more balanced style fits well with UConn's traditionally team-oriented play. Both approaches have proven effective, with each player making significant impacts in their own ways. In conclusion, while Paige Beckers has the potential to become a leading figure in women's college basketball, her approach and aspirations suggest she aims to carve out her own identity rather than simply being the next Caitlin Clark. The future of women's basketball looks promising, with both players contributing to its evolution. In summary, Paige Beckers is not just making headlines, she is making history. Her unprecedented move to join the Unrivaled League and her impending entry into the WNBA signal a new era for women's basketball. As the Sparks strategize for the second half of the 2024 WNBA season, securing the #1 pick and fostering internal development are key to building a competitive team. The combination of Beckers' talent and the Sparks' young core promises an exciting future for women's basketball.